Hello, I'm Anna Marie Gonzalez, and this is my Illuminated Manuscript video for Marian Art Spring 2019. Today I will be talking about a manuscript from the first quarter of the 13th century. The title is The Depiction of the Crucifixion in the Missal, the Stavelot Missal, Volume 1. Okay, so in this crucifixion scene, we have Mary and Saint John. It is assumed Mary is on Jesus's right side, and I say that because she is wearing a head covering and shoes. She is also holding her hand out towards Jesus and Saint John, and from what I can see, she has a surrendered, devoted gaze, as if she's acknowledging the implication of Jesus's death and redemption. I see like a glimmer of hope. Not a glimmer, but I feel like she's kind of stoic. I feel like that's her facial expression is like, okay, yeah. And it's unlike any other depictions I've heard of, like during the Passion, like she's crying. She's like kind of very lamentful and sad. I feel in this image she's kind of like, okay, yeah, this needed to happen. Let's do this. This is what needed to happen. And she has hope. Like, I feel like she doesn't feel like this is the end. I feel like there's like wisdom there. So this piece is a part of the Roman Missal, which is also known as a sacramentary or lectionary for Mass. It is the first volume of a 2-volume set. The 2-volume Missal was created for the Benedictine Abbey of Stavelot. Okay, the thematic iconography within this type of piece is commonly connected with the Mass and the Holy Eucharist. And as noted by Gersman, the sacramental significance of this image is revealed in the blotched crimson tint on the cheeks of Jesus. I guess that was kind of like that was an observation that I made, but Gersman did acknowledge the sacramental significance of this image. The colors of red and blue enhance the dramatic impact of the image and is indicative of life and death, blood and water, light and dark, and the steady circle of life. Mary and Jesus represent the life and death and resurrection of the church. Through blood and water, Jesus came through Mary, and likewise through blood and water, Jesus enters into the next wave of his redeeming narrative. And I should also note, however, that red and blue are also traditional colors worn by Mary and Jesus throughout historical documented images. Now, I want to volunteer a shortcoming that I made. I was unable to translate what the figures or words were atop of Jesus's head, but I'm thinking it was some other type of way of pronounce or inscription of the INRI, the Latin inscription for Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews, as depicted in John 19:19. But I'm not completely sure of that. I have not taken Latin or Greek, or I haven't taken any of those classes. And I looked it up, but I couldn't find anything on it. Okay, so onto the border of the image. It appears to be some type of floral or vine illustration. Perhaps this may signify growth, fertility, and fruition. The frame is also skirted in blues and reds, permeating the concept of light and dark, death and life, blood and water, mother and son. And it can also be attributed to Jesus describing himself as the vine. And next, I want to acknowledge the figures of the sun and the moon placed right above Jesus. The sun is located on the right of Jesus and the moon on the left side of Jesus. It is noted in the book of Luke, chapter 23, verse 45, because the sun was darkened, or some versions say the sun was obscured, or the sun's light failed. In one translation, I believe the Catholic Bible says there was an eclipse of the sun, and the veil of the temple was torn down the middle. So we have this theme of darkness and light, death and life, blood and water, maybe the combination of two lights. And then we have Jesus right there in the middle, kind of like when you look out into the horizon, you see the sun come up and down. I'm going to get into that later, but it represents the two lights combined, as we would now call it, the twilight. And it also noted in Luke, and I want to go back to the twilight. I think Boss mentions that in the Black Madonna, but it has something to do with like Mary's face, and blackness is darkness. But I just kind of did want to make a note of that. She does attribute them from dusk. It means twilight. Okay, so moving on. Also wanted to note in Luke that for 3 hours after Jesus' death, darkness swept over the land. So here we have another reference to enhance the figures of the sun and the moon conjoined over Jesus. Okay, so this astrological phenomenon was something medieval artists took advantage of. And as we can see by looking at different medieval depictions of the crucifixion, the use of color abstraction was very much attributed to this part of scripture. So as we flow through the blues and reds, picking up hints of refreshment and being calmed by the redeeming qualities of Christ's blood and sacrifice, there's something worth noting. And what I saw was the way Christ is shown in painstaking surrender, as if he has gone through, well, he did go through the worst type of trauma, endured tremendous amount of pain. And in my perspective, there is a calmness in the way his head is tilted towards Mary. And what we know from scripture, he calls to his Father and commends his spirit. Selah. So my favorite time of day is the hour between complete light and complete darkness. It's the twilight hour, and I was obsessed with this hour before twilight was a thing, before the movie and the books and all that stuff. So twilight is mine. So some call it the golden hour because it's when the sun is at the perfect angle for photos. And I really like that idea. It's like the metaphor involved there, like how the golden hour, the twilight hour is this beautifully amazing hour, and it can remind me, and it reminds us of the significance of the cross, the significance of Christ there in the middle. And like I was talking about before, and we're making these metaphors of this image, the twilight, at dawn and dusk, when the sun is rising and coming down, it's like they're the combination of two lights. In the bottom you have darkness, and in the top you have light, or vice versa, depending on the time of day. And then we have the sun rising and setting, and it happens every single day. And the sun, and it never happens in the same way. And it's kind of like, God has a new story for us every day, and it's written in the sky. And I'm going to get very emotional about this because I feel like watching the sunrise is a devotion in itself, because the sun is rising, and then and then we have the resurrection, and that's a whole different conversation. But I mean, at the same time, it is kind of all molded into one, and that was the redemption narrative that Christ has. And so this beautifully amazing hour reminds us of the significance of Christ, and in personal devotion, you look out into the combination of two lights, darkness and light, and we remember Jesus. And that is the completion of my video. I look forward to your questions, Dr. Bush, and have a nice day.